Hey guys, Rachel from Past Building Consultants here. Today, before I head out on site, I thought I would share with you a real example of something that happened to a colleague of mine only a couple of days ago, which really demonstrates very well the idea that if you can design to not quite the minimum standards, give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, is really going to help you on site. So what happened it's in bathrooms, and at design stage they've got the dimensions on the plan and it looks fine, but what they hadn't allowed for is the 12 millimeters of plywood around the bathroom, by toilets, showers, baths, for fixing of grab rails. So in SDA homes and apartment buildings, for those areas in bathrooms and toilets, you may need to fit grab rails. Now, you may not know where those grab rails are going to be required, because often you don't know who the participant is going to be and what sort of grab rails they need and where they need to be located. So you need to make sure that the walls are going to be strong enough for location of grab rails in many different places. 12 millimeters of ply, as well as the thickness of the plasterboard and the tiles. 12 mm ply is generally the cheapest and easiest way for builders to achieve the structural integrity required for fixing of grab rails. But there are other ways that you can do that, such as noggins in between the stud work. So what happened in this case is they'd forgotten the 12 mm ply, which means that you're going to be reducing the overall width in the bathrooms by at least 24 millimeters. And I say at least 24 millimeters because, again, we don't know what thickness the tiles are. You've got different options for plasterboard thicknesses. They may have put the walls in slightly the wrong position when they were constructing them, because you do have tolerances and variances that do happen on site. You know, you've got dozens of contractors, you've got the apprentices that work for the contractors, and you've got bad weather, you've got variances in the tolerances for things like, you know, the sizes of timbers and blockwork walls and things. So there are a number of compounding issues which can mean that all of a sudden, even though it looks fine at design stage, on site it doesn't actually reflect exactly what was on the plans. And although things seem minor, and usually in normal construction circumstances it wouldn't be an issue, if you need to comply with SDA standards, you could be in a world of hurt on site if you haven't allowed that little bit of extra wiggle room at design stage. Sometimes things go absolutely to plan and there are no tolerances or differences at all, and that's awesome. But as I say, if you can give yourself that little bit of extra, so you're not designing and to the absolute minimum standard sizes, it's probably going to help you in the long run. Because having to fix something like that, you know, and again I'll go back to ramps as a good example, having to fix a non-compliant ramp because the levels weren't quite right, or somebody decided to change something at the last minute and then didn't realise the implications of that. Having to fix those on site can be extremely expensive and far outweigh the cost of that additional bit of extra wiggle room that you might have designed in, that yes, possibly cost a little bit more, but may make your life just so much easier down the track and actually save you money in the long run. So that was the example. If you are faced with that on site and you think, oh gosh, how are we going to fix this? It's not really down to the SDA assessor to kind of assist with that. It's not really their role or responsibility. However, I can't help but, you know, go back to my working with builders for many years and also working as a certifier, and we are responsible for coming up with solutions. If I was faced with that scenario on site, my suggestion would probably be to put in noggins in between the stud work. Noggins are pieces of timber, and the builders will know what these are, but for people who aren't aware, so they are bits of timber which are usually just cut up from the bits of stud, and you can put them in between the studs. So they're horizontal pieces of timber that fix in between your vertical studs, which form your walls that you fix your plasterboard to. These noggins need to be very well fixed if you are going to use noggins, and obviously the limitation is that, you know, a big sheet of plywood across all the walls, you know anywhere you're going to put a grab rail, there's going to be plywood there. With noggins, you might have to take photographs and go, okay, well, this is where we put the noggins. So yes, there will be a firm base as long as they've been fixed very well. They will mean that you don't have to take off 12 millimeters of the room clearance, and remember that's going to be all sides of the room, so you're going to be losing 24 mil width and depth. So you don't have to line the walls with an extra layer. Another thing you could do is look at the thickness of the plasterboard, the thickness of the tiles that are suggested, and maybe go for a thinner alternatives, which might then bring down that overall size, or increase the overall size because you've reduced the material's thickness. You know, you've got villa board, which can be 6 mil as opposed to maybe using a 13 mil plasterboard. It just depends on what's been specified. And often these things, you know, they might change. So somebody might decide to change the tile specification or change the plasterboard thickness because they're getting a better deal somewhere else, and not really realise the implications of what that change means for SDA. Because in normal circumstances it wouldn't be an issue. So all these sorts of things can kind of point to, if you can give yourself that little bit of wiggle room, please try and do so, because I think it's going to help you in the long run, and going to remove risk for you, essentially. Going back to the noggins and how you can fix that. So yeah, you can either just use noggins, but I also want to give you another alternative, and that is recessing the noggin, so using slightly thinner pieces of timber, so that they're slightly recessed from the face of the studs. I recess them by about 12 mil so you can still put your plywood there, which means you've still got the surface area of plywood, but it's recessed to be flush with the front of your studs, so your plasterboard can be fixed directly to that. That would also give you that, yeah, I think it's kind of the best of both worlds. You've got the surface area, but you don't have that encroachment into your room size. But as I say, the SDA assessor, that's not really their responsibility, and it will be the design team who obviously decide which is the best solution to meet everybody's requirements. So I thought I'd share that with you as a real life example. If you guys have got any other queries or questions, or you'd like any particular topics covered, please do get in touch via our website or our Facebook pages, or drop me an email at rachel@passbc.com.au. And if I can't help you, then I will find someone who can. We are here to facilitate and inform the design and build part of the SDA journey and process, so that we can get exceptional SDA built for participants. That's what we're here for. So by all means, reach out if you've got anything that you would like covered, and take care. Have a great weekend. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.